Mark from Florida. I've always wanted to know your thoughts on Takeshi Morishima. Any memories of him from Ring of Honor or matches of his that you would recommend? Do you think that we will ever get a Dark Side of the Ring featuring his story? Yeah, Morishima is one of the sadder what-if stories in wrestling for me. He was a super athletic big man from Japan, made his bones in Pro Wrestling Noah. When he first showed up in the States, he was unstoppable. He was this monster. And he had a memorable run as the Ring of Honor World Champion. He came in not long after I first got into Ring of Honor. I started attending shows in 2006. He came in 2007. So I got to see a lot of those matches in person. And the two that I would recommend most are his battles with Bryan Danielson. The first one where Bryan suffered a detached retina and somehow kept wrestling for another 15 minutes. I don't know how. The man almost lost his eye. Then we got eye patch Bryan for a while. I wasn't the least bit surprised that he and Brock Lesnar had such a great match at Survivor Series. Anybody who saw those Danielson-Morishima matches knew how well that dynamic would work. The whole, David and Goliath thing. But also their last match at Final Battle in 2008 was their best one. I was at that one. I think that may have been the last match that Morishima ever wrestled in the U.S. I know it was his last match in Ring of Honor. I'll never forget. The first time I ever saw Morishima live, it was at the Manhattan Center. And right on the corner, they've got a place called the TikTok Diner. You look over and there's Madison Square Garden basically across the street, like it's in the shadows. But we would always stop there to grab food, either before the show or after the show was over. And that night after the show, my brother and I, we walk in and we sit down and I see this giant man sitting in a booth, like halfway across the diner, got his back turned. And he's sitting in this booth that had to be far too small for him. But I said, man, that's Morishima. And I had to walk by his table to go to the bathroom. I wasn't going to bother him or anything, but I look over and I wish I could remember what he was eating. But he had like 2 full plates of food. I just remember thinking to myself, wow, like big boy's eating well tonight. He was a special talent. WWE actually just released his 2 tryout matches from 2008 on their new Vault channel on YouTube. Funny enough, he wrestled Charlie Haas in one and then Jamie Noble in the other. I don't know if that's why you decided to send this question in this week or if that was just a coincidence, but if you haven't seen those 2 tryout matches, you can go watch them. Of course, they sent him to the ring to the fucking Orient Express theme song because of course they did. But after that ROH run, he went back to Japan full time and his career just fell off. Not right away, but, it was several years later he retired. He was only 37 when he called it quits. I looked up his birthday. He was only 37 when he called it quits. He claimed at the time it was due to being diagnosed with diabetes. That's not why he retired. And I think he admitted that later on. That wasn't the actual reason. That was the cover reason. He just ended up in a really bad place. And he ended up, I think, depressed and broke and homeless for a while. He got in trouble with the law. I know he assaulted a cab driver once. He broke both his cheekbones. He had no money. And he figured that he could just get somebody else to pay his fare. So he got in the cab. He rode around for a while. And after a while, the driver was like, hey, he wants to be paid. And Morishima beat him up. He lost a ton of weight. Any photos I've seen of him from like the last, 8 or 9 years, maybe 10 years, he lost so much weight. Like he almost looks unrecognizable. It's just really sad how it all turned out for him. It honestly sounds like he has some serious mental health issues that need to be addressed. I hope he is getting them addressed. There's been no news about him in the last several years. I tried to find something and I assume he's alive or else we would have heard otherwise, but whatever he's doing, it's been very quiet. I hope he's got his life together somewhat. I think he would make a good choice for a Dark Side of the Ring episode, especially, look, they've done episodes on, less well-known people in wrestling. At least here, he's worked against people who are well-known on TV now, like Kevin Owens and Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness. They couldn't get Owens for it, but maybe they could get some of the AEW folks that worked with him to go on camera and talk about him. Neil from Chicago. If Bret Hart versus Goldberg never happened, when do you think Bret would have retired from the ring? I think Bret was 42 or 43 when he retired. If he had stayed healthy, he could have kept wrestling into his late 40s easily, maybe 50-ish. That would have taken him well into the Ruthless Aggression era in WWE, because I have no doubt he would have ended up back wrestling for Vince. If not right after WCW died, then within a few years, like all those other guys, Goldberg and Hogan and Steiner, they sat home and collected their money. It may have taken a few years, but he would have ended up there. And we would have gotten one more Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels match, probably at WrestleMania. Bret Hart against Randy Orton, Bret Hart against John Cena, Bret Hart against Kurt Angle. That's the big one for me. Probably would have gotten a Chris Benoit match in WWE with him. Jericho. Like, we would have gotten all of that. He would have worked with all those key guys. That's what we missed out on.